Are you looking for more out of your life? Do you need ideas on how to start new businesses and how to move forward in your own personal life? Well, guess what? You have come to the right radio show. At You Can Overcome Anything podcast show, you will learn and hear from many people from all walks of life who are sharing their challenges, their stories, the habits, and the mind shifts they had to overcome to become who they are today. On top, you will get a chance to connect and see how you can overcome anything by networking and learning about your next move through this radio show. I present to you our great speakers at You Can Overcome Anything podcast show with your host, Cesar Espino. Hello there, and welcome back to another episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. It is your host, Cesar Espino. And today I have a special guest. His name is James Hawreluk. He has a BBA in business management from the University of Michigan and an MBA from the University of Detroit. From his involvement in a youth organization to his full-time position at a bank as a business owner and involved in sales and consulting, people have always fascinated him. With over 20 years experience in people business, Jay now serves as the founder and CEO of AcuMax Index since 2012, as well as being the author of Unraveling the Mystery of People, which now enables all people to improve their relationships, job satisfaction, and overall life enjoyment. From this book, the AcuMax Index Survey has been developed, which accurately assesses an individual's natural wiring and tells us how they are best motivated, process thought, prefer work style, how risk decisions are made, and one's communication style. Wow, that's huge and that's amazing. Welcome. How are you today, Jay?
Well, I'm doing great today, especially because I'm from the University of Michigan and they won the national championship. So,
Nice. That's awesome. That is
how
awesome.
can you not be unhappy today?
Yeah, no, that's good. No, I love that. I love that. So tell me a little bit more about you. Tell me more about where are you originally from and how was your upbringing?
I'm originally from Michigan. I was born in Michigan. Um, my dad worked for the government.
Okay.
So he was transferred down to the Pentagon. And so my first 5 years of school, I went to five different schools.
Wow. Okay.
And kindergarten here, I went down to Virginia. I was too young for public school, actually, in Virginia. So they had to put me in a private school for grade one. And then grade two, I went to the public school. Then they built a public school. And I went to grade three. And then we moved back up here and I went to grade four. So I was in five different schools my first 5 years of education. That was interesting and a challenge.
Yeah, yeah. Let me ask you something. I'm always interested to know, as we're growing up, right? We always have this idea of when I grow up, I want to be this, I want to do that. What was that for you? Like, do you had any idea of what you wanted to do when you were, of age?
Well, I really wanted to get into business,
Okay.
but I really didn't know what I wanted to get into, frankly.
Hmm.
And I started my career at a bank, and I enjoyed the retail side, the
Yeah.
branches, dealing with the people. I really enjoyed that. And then I was given some good advice by one of the leaders, said, you need to go down to the commercial side because that's where people are promoted. So
Yeah.
I went on to become a credit analyst, but I hated it.
Yeah.
And so I went from this company that I loved to about a year later, just really not liking it at all. And so I decided to leave. And I kind of floated around, did some different things, started my first business venture. That was a complete and total disaster.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, but learned a lot. You'll learn a lot from your failures. You don't learn as much from your successes.
Yeah. How old were you when you started working at the bank?
I was 21, 22.
Gotcha. So you were kind of doing that and going to school.
Yes, I
Gotcha.
finished my bachelor's degree.
Got it.
Master's.
Yeah. You said something that I think is critical, and a lot of times you go to school, right? And as you go to school, a lot of things that you hear from teachers or just I guess the school system is and I'm referring to just even talking about like middle school, elementary, high school is like don't fail, don't always do good, always achieve, always that it's always about win, 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 right? Never make sure that you never fail at anything, right? Except again, you said something that I think is critical, and that is that you learn more from your failures than you do from your successes, right? Tell me more about that because again, a lot of times people do not understand that connotation, or they don't understand the meaning of that. Because I do agree with you. I think that if you're not failing, you're not growing to an extent, right? I mean, obviously there's failures, and what I believe is that while you're learning through that, it's exactly that. It's a learning experience, and you got to be able to learn from that and then do something different, right? If you're going back to the same place, or you're failing at the same thing over and over and over, obviously you haven't learned the lesson, right? Except tell me more about that because I think that's a huge lesson by itself.
Well, people have asked me how did I make AcuMax so successful? And I say, well, it's because I failed in business before. And I had it was a screen printing operation. And I failed for multiple reasons. Number one, we were undercapitalized. So cash was always an issue. Number two, I did not hire particularly well. And so, people are everything in a business. You have to get it right. And number three, what really we tried to expand too quickly.
Mm.
And so I've been in running this business. Took all those lessons learned, make sure you have sufficient cash, hire the right people, don't expand too quickly because there's always this when you're starting out as an entrepreneur, it's kind of like, well, we can do this. Well, we can do this too. We can do this. We can do this. But you have to stay laser focused on really your niche. And so that was the key. So those were the three lessons that I learned in that. And I carried them through in developing this company.
Yeah. Uh, so talking about being laser focused, I know that a lot of times people, when there's so many things. Like if you think about somebody wanting to jump into becoming an entrepreneur right now, there's so many different things that you see on YouTube, on Facebook. You have all these ads. Be an investor. Get into crypto. Becoming a marketer. Like there's so many different things, and sometimes or get into this MLM. Sometimes people tend to I'm guilty of that because when I started my journey, I did that. I was like juggling between five, six, seven different things, and I wasn't really focused on any of them. I thought I could make it all work, right? And,
Mhm.
and and in reality, I was not only not making it work, I was not really focused on neither of the things that I was doing, so nothing was growing, right? And I think that's probably the biggest challenge that we have or we face. That when we look at it from that perspective, and we know that we're not making it, then we kind of tend to say, okay, I'm gonna give up and I'm gonna go back to whatever it is that I was doing, right? How does somebody, obviously you've learned, how do you somebody says, okay, I need to stay laser focused, like what is that driven factor to give you or to say, hey, this is exactly what you need to get yourself into. Let's focus on this one thing. Like, how do you get that mindset to be able to do that?
You have to be able to tell yourself no.
Mm,
So, customers will come to you and say, well, if you could only do this, if you could only do this, if you could only do this. And the tendency, especially of new entrepreneurs, is to say, oh, yeah, sure, we can do this. So I'll put a lot of time and resources and money into something that may be a one time project, as opposed to saying, you know, I appreciate that you like our services. That's not what we do. We focus completely on this. Being able to say no is critical. And that was what keeps you focused because as an entrepreneur, go through just what you went through, five, six different things. I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. I'm not doing any of them well.
mhm.
And then they all start to suffer. So the key thing is to say no. This is our business. This is our focus. Now, hey, if you need the service, maybe I can make a referral for you. And clients really appreciate that honesty too. I mean, you're flattered when they say, "Can you come if you could only do this?" And but it's really just being able to say no and say, "This is our plan. This is what we do," and stay focused on that. Kind of avoid the shiny ball syndrome.
Yeah, yeah, right, exactly. What was your driving factor to getting you into becoming an entrepreneur versus maybe staying in the financial industry or in the banking system, right? What was that one thing to say? You know what? I gotta. I call it taking a leap of faith, right? And jumping and doing that because I do believe that anyone that comes out of their 9 to 5 and decides to do something, whatever business it is, on your own, that's a leap of faith, right? And so you're taking a big risk. What was it for you to say that said, you know what? I think I'm ready for this. I need to jump and do this.
Well, I just decided that banking probably wasn't for me. And I had an idea and I thought, okay, I'm going to go do this. And in retrospect, I just made a lot of mistakes. I jumped into it too quickly. I didn't have a good, solid business plan. I'd recommend any entrepreneur. First thing you create is a solid business plan. Second thing is you stick to that business plan. Third thing is you make sure you're properly capitalized. And the fourth thing is you hire the right people. So I just kind of decided to do it and jumped in with a leap of faith. And, I had some success at it. I mean, I ended up selling the business off to actually one of the people that worked for me.
Mhm.
But it just, I didn't do those things. I figured, well, I know all this stuff. I can do it. It's very simple. You just go sell, deliver. It's easy. But you really need a plan. I mean, I think probably what I learned is the old saying, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And that's exactly true. So you really need to do that. So it was kind of a leap of faith. I thought I would like to do something different, try something different, work for myself. I kiddingly say I'm not fit for corporate life. So, I mean, that was really the driving factor.
Yeah. Eh, Besides having a lot of different failures, if you call them, I call them lessons, a lot of lessons, right?
Yeah.
Um, what was that recovery period for you? I mean, it was a long period of time for you to kind of recover because I'm sure it was like a roller coaster, right? And there were so many different ups and downs. Maybe did there ever come the point where you said, you know what, I'm gonna throw in the towel and I'm going to give up and just go back to something more secure per se?
Well, yeah. I mean, at the time I saw the business was struggling. One of the guys that worked for me said, "Hey, I'd like to buy this," and we cut a deal, and it kind of got me out of it, which was really all that was there. Um, I then decided to go into sales,
Mm.
and I did several different selling positions and was pretty successful at it, and really enjoyed it. And then, actually, quite by accident, about 23 years ago, I fell into the personality assessment arena.
Mm.
And I was working as a manufacturing consultant. And our behavioral department was pretty sad. It was really the beatings will continue until morale improves. And I went looking for something to kind of improve that. And I talked to this company, and during our conversations, they ended up offering me a position. And I ended up taking it. And I became very, very successful. And it was finally my passion because my passion's always been trying to figure out people.
Mm.
So I was very successful at that. And then I was involved in a professional organization at that time. And there were a lot of entrepreneurs, and I learned a lot. And I got the bug again. And so I decided, oh gosh, now it's going to be almost 13 years ago. I decided to leave that company. I had a 1 year non-solicitation that I honored. Always honor your word.
Yeah.
And actually, that's one of our values. One of our values is we always do what we say we're going to do. We say we're going to do it. And that's very important in business. So I honored that. But at that point in time, I had gotten very interested in the neurosciences. Most personality assessments are based in the social sciences, the observable behavior of people.
Mm.
So I got very interested in the neurosciences. And during that 1 year time period, I started work on the AcuMax Index. And then we ended up opening our doors October 1st of 2012. That all you entrepreneurs, we opened the door. We had no clients. We had no money. But we had a business plan.
Mm.
We knew exactly what we had goals, knew exactly what we were going to be doing. And at the time, it was pretty much just me.
Yeah.
you know. And so we've stuck to that. and been very successful with our program.
Yeah. One thing that I think has a lot of merit and value uh, in anything that we do is what you just mentioned earlier is that you finally find your passion, right?
Yes.
Oftentimes we're going through life and we're going from a job to job or doing things and not really finding that niche or that one thing that you're passionate about, right? And the best way, I was talking to a client of mine or someone that I'm coaching too, and they were asking me like, "Hey, I'm trying to get into something. I don't know what to do." And I said, you know, if you knew what to do, what would you do? And ask yourself this question: if you can get up every day and do something that you enjoy, you're passionate about doing, whether you got paid or not, what would that be, right? And once we can think of it in that sense, that if I get up today and I can do this without even getting paid and I enjoy it, then the second thing would be is now how can we let's find a way that that thing that you enjoy doing, because you got to be able to enjoy it, you have to have that passion. How can we now capitalize that and now start, as you mentioned, start creating some sort of business plan or an idea behind that to be able to make that make you money because you enjoy it. I think it was Les Brown that said that literally on Monday people are literally dying to go to work, right? And he said that joking around, except again sometimes and he talks about it, and I did look into this. Most of the heart attacks happen on Monday morning. Why? Because people really don't enjoy their job. They're just going there to collect a paycheck or going there to you just get something. So again, the idea of having that passion and finding that. So for someone that might be seeking, might be looking for, people say my why, my purpose, my passion. Uh, how or what would be something that you might say to them that they can kind of hone in and look at finding that passion?
Well, I think you gave great advice. I mean, find something you enjoy, that whether you get paid for it or not, you enjoy doing. Here's the funny thing: everybody has a skill,
Mhm.
everybody has an ability to do something. So the key is to find what you're good at, what you enjoy. It's the old comment, when you have a job, you're working for a paycheck. When you follow your passion, you create a career and the money will come.
Yeah.
Money will come. I mean, you talk to every entrepreneur out there, most of them started and they struggled, but it was all I had a passion, whether it's selling shelving racks
Hmm.
or providing medical services, but they all had a passion. I had a gentleman of mine, he had started, a good friend of mine, he had started a business many, many years ago. And we were having lunch one day, and I asked him, I said, what made you so successful at business? He said, well, first of all, I knew what I was good at. But more importantly, I knew what I wasn't good at
Yeah.
and didn't try to do it. And I thought that was really solid advice. You know, so I think your advice is excellent. Find what you like to do, whether you get paid for it or not. And then you can end up monetizing it.
Hmm.
That's the key. And then to do it before you jump in, create that business plan,
Yeah.
create goals. Those are very important. That's what keeps you focused every day. All right.
Yeah.
And weather the storm, because there are going to be down periods. There are going to be tough times. I mean, that's just the way it is. I mean, no business, well, there's probably a few out there, but the majority of businesses don't start and then they just grow and flourish and there's never any headaches or problems. There are, but it's persistence. Persistence pays. When you're starting your business and you're trying to get some customers and you make 50 or 100 or 200 phone calls and everybody's telling you no, make another 50 or 100 or 200 phone calls, because sooner or later somebody's going to say yes, and that's going to give you your break and your opportunity.
Yeah, I love that. Talking about, whether the storm, you talk about this, and I like what you're saying here. It's not the challenge that you face, it's how you face that challenge, right?
Yep.
Um, Give me an example of what that looks like, because again, when people look at challenges or problems or things of that nature, is we just don't know how to handle that. We don't know how to go about it, right? And again, we've been talking about the lessons that you learn through failure, and that's exactly what it is, right? You know, is how you deal with that challenge. So tell me more about how that looks like for you.
Well, in the early days of the company, I'd been in business about not quite a year. I hired my first employee. And at the beginning of the month, I'd do a cash flow projection. And how am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to pay this person? How am I going to do that? Okay. And what I discovered was if I dwelled on that, nothing happened. If I instead turned my attention to saying, I'm going to go secure clients, I'm going to go do these sort of things, miraculously, the money appeared. And, we always were able to pay our bills. Kind of learn that early. Don't focus on the negative. Negatives are going to occur. It's, again, not the challenge you face, how you face a challenge. Negatives will always occur. You're going to have a setback. You're going to lose that big customer. You're going to have a big setback. But don't ever forget your mission and always focus on what you need to do, not the negatives, focus on the positives. And that was kind of the biggest thing that I learned. And because of that, we got through all of those tough times. I mean, I just kind of joked with this employee. He ended up retiring, worked for me for 10 years. He ended up retiring. I said, remember the early days when I'd be in such a panic? He said, yeah. I said, and we got through it. He's like, yeah. By the way, I meant to ask you, how'd you do that? I said, I decided not to focus on the negative. I decided to focus on the positive.
Yeah, I love that, and that's just like any not even in business. I mean, it's definitely also in life, right? Personal life, relationships, things like that. We gotta focus on that positive. Tell me more about your business. You started the business. What exactly do you do in your business, and how do you help others?
Well, the AcuMax Index is unique because we measure innate human wiring. Innate human wiring occurs in the 18 to 24-month period after any person on the planet is born.
Mm.
During that time period, there's millions of neural pathways created that control all sorts of bodily functions. We measure four as how they apply to business and relationships. And let's face it, business is relationships.
Mm-hmm.
So we're a deep dive into an individual. The other personality assessments are in the social sciences, the observable behavior we see. But people's behavior changes over time. It's why you don't act the same way today as you did when you were 18 years old.
Right. Yep.
So what we do is it's a very quick assessment. It takes less than 5 minutes to complete. It tells me your natural orientation to ideas, how you communicate, which is not talk or think, because everybody does that, how you successfully process thought, your work style, how you accept pressure, speed of decision making, how you make decisions, how you're comfortable with risk, how you learn, and where you get your self-confidence. And it's all in less than 5 minutes. Now, what's the value of this? We market our program to businesses. And we go in and we survey the employees, and then they tell us, hey, these are my really good performers. We then create a hiring template that candidates can be screened through. Mm-hmm. So it saves the business time and money because every business owner I've ever talked to, I've asked this question. Have you ever hired the next greatest employee only to 90 days later be scratching your head saying, what planet is this person from? Everyone has said yes.
Yeah.
Because good interviews oftentimes don't make good employees.
Right.
So we save time and money. We're accustomed to the needs of that business. And we do it in an objective, analytical way. Now, we can be used in the pre-hire screening process because we are EEOC compliant and we are statistically validated. So we allow businesses to hire better. Now, the benefit to the employee is we also show businesses how to best motivate them. Motivators are the non-monetary things you need for job satisfaction. Kind of going back to what you said, what would you want to do even if you weren't getting paid for it? Mm-hmm. Some non-monetary things to help provide it. So what we create is an engaged workforce, satisfied employees, a more productive organization that can grow and expand.
Yeah. So with that assessment, do you also with the company or do you offer kind of some value add in terms of saying, okay, well, maybe these people might have ranked on certain things low, and so let's create a plan or a training plan to help them get to a higher level. Like, can you? I guess my question is based on the assessment and the different results and the different categories. Can the employer or your company go in and try to create something to help the people get up on those levels and learn those skills, or be able to increase those results?
Absolutely, because one of the things that the assessment measures is how people best learn. So when you apply one size fits all technique, you're negating 75% of your workforce. So how does this person best learn? What are the steps that we need to take? And one of the big areas that's going on right now in business is businesses are creating their own workforce,
Mhm.
especially in the skilled trades. I mean, there's a real dearth of individuals in the skilled trades. I mean, so they're creating them. So you hire to the wiring, and then you teach them the skill, and then based on the wiring, how they best learn. The reality of it is, though, three things happen when a company brings us in. You have some underperformers that'll perform better because you know how to properly motivate them.
Yep.
Number two, you may have some square pegs and round holes where you say, you know what? This person would be better over here. And thirdly, you may have to give some people in the company the opportunity to excel at another organization.
Yeah.
But it's about the health of the organization and the company. Nothing makes me feel better than when we start working with a company of 10, 12, 15 employees, and they're at 100, 125 today.
Yeah.
And, by following the process, what we do say to our clients, if you follow the process, you'll get great results. If you don't, you won't. It's like anything else. It's like creating a business plan. If you don't follow it, you're not going to get the results. Setting goals. If you don't follow it and go for your goals, you're not going to hit them. So if you follow the process, you get great results.
Yeah.
So we help companies really better engage their employees, create a better, more satisfying place to work. We have numerous clients that are on the best place to work lists.
Yeah, yeah, it increases the morale and all that stuff, and I can definitely see the benefit. My previous life, I worked at it was mostly in the logistics industry. Yet we have a lot of employees, and I can see that from a continuous improvement, the benefit of being able to do those type of assessments and be able to not only get your core team to a higher level. I mean, I can definitely, if I was in that industry, I can see the benefit of being able to utilize that, because I do believe that that's needed. And being someone that have in the past previous lives managed over 80 people at one time, I can see how that doing something like that can really increase productivity and profits for any company for that matter. So
It does.
yeah.
And the residual effect is it improves employee satisfaction. So who doesn't want a happy, engaged workforce?
Yeah, no, definitely. So, how do people get to find your companies? Get to find out about more about your company and or your services?
They can visit our website. It's www.AcuMax Index. That's AcuMaxIndex.com. You can take a free survey.
Awesome, I love that. So, tell me about your book. What inspired writing your book, and tell me a little bit about your book and where can people find that book too?
The book is available through the website as well. It's available only in PDF. Um, Actually, I did a presentation years ago, and a gentleman came up to me and he said, you should put these stories that you tell into a book. And so I thought, wow, that's a pretty good idea. And so that's exactly what I did. And I will tell you, it was the hardest thing I ever did. It's so much easier to tell a story verbally than to
Yeah.
write it and make it so that people can really embrace it and understand it. I ended up actually working with an editor on it, but it was the hardest thing I ever did. But it's a fun book about people, and it gives you a lot of ahas. There's a lot of personal stories, just stories that I used to tell about my family in different
Mhm.
situations to discuss certain points. So I kind of put that into writing, into a book, and and so people enjoy it and they get some fun out of reading it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's awesome. So I'm sure at your level and the things you've accomplished in being the last since 2012 when you started the company, all these years, right? All this time that you've done this, right? I'm sure that you've done some internal work on yourself. So I'm curious to know what kind of work have you done, because I believe that everything begins with thought. And just like if you're trying to have a fit body and be healthy, you gotta eat the right ingredients and watch what you're doing and working on that muscle, which is on your muscles. I believe that's the same thing with your mind. If you want to be able to get to different levels, you got to be able to feed your mind what you see, what you watch, what you hear, all those different elements, right? Tell me, what is it that you do to be able to help you, because obviously being able to run a company and be able to do all these different things, you have to be doing other things that are helping you internally.
The biggest thing from the business perspective is to learn to walk away and spend some time for yourself.
Hmm.
A lot of entrepreneurs, they put 15, 18 hours a day into it. They're working 6, 7 days a week. And I actually learned this lesson the hard way. I mean, I was doing all of that. Then it's like all of a sudden, it kind of, my wife comes to me one night and she's like, okay, look, I know you got this business and I know you work hard at it, but I also want to have a life. I also want to have a relationship with you. And that was just really eye opening to me. And so set those boundaries. There's a lot to do in running a business, but if you effectively schedule your day, you'll get it done. But take time for yourself. That is the biggest thing that I would give, because it's no sense working yourself into a business to die. And so you got to take time for yourself. You got to be able to enjoy life, step away from it. And this is what happens when you step away. You get clarity, you get ideas because you're removed from it. So the biggest thing I say is step away from that business, set a schedule, adhere to that schedule, but spend some time stepping away and spend some time for yourself.
What are your daily habits? What do you do on a day-to-day basis?
Well, I eat right. I get enough sleep. I get at least 8 hours of sleep a night. That's very important to be sharp
Mm-hmm.
the next day. And I have a regimented schedule. I start at a certain time. I end at a certain time. And then I spend time with my family. So it's really kind of having that schedule and sticking to it. And most things don't need to be attended to immediately. I mean, it's not like the
Yeah.
house is on fire. And sometimes I may get a late email from a client and I'll just say, hey, I've knocked off for the day. I'll get back with you tomorrow. And they're like, fine.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but that's kind of it. I have a pretty structured schedule, and making sure that I have a good work-life balance. We hear that all the time. Work is part of life,
Right.
but it's really how you schedule it. And scheduling time for yourself and your family is critical.
Yeah, I love that. So have that structure and as you said, building healthy boundaries for sure are huge.
Absolutely.
Yeah. My last question for you, Jay, is for the people that are watching us and listening to us right now, if they're going through any challenge, whatever challenge that might be, what is one or a couple of things you can say to them to start overcoming that challenge?
Well, number one, I'd say go to our website, take the survey for free.
Mm.
All right. Because it's going to tell you who you are. You know who you are, but it gives you a kind of a language. It's also going to tell you your strengths and limitations. So understanding that, then you can kind of plan and say, okay, this is not a strength of mine. So why am I going to keep doing these things? These are the strengths. I'm going to focus on them. And the second advice I would give for somebody having a challenge is be persistent, weather the storm. It never lasts.
Mm.
I mean, how many times in your life, if you look back, you've gone through something, you thought it was horrible, you get through it and you go, no, it really wasn't that bad.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's key. Those are the key things. So just understanding your strengths and limitations and being persistent and understanding it's not going to last. You'll get through everything that's thrown at you. You will. It may not seem like it at that time, but you will get through it, especially if you keep a positive mental mindset.
Oh man, I love that. Well, Jay, thank you again for being here. Really appreciate everything you've shared with us today. Anything else you want to say before I let you go?
Thank you so much for being on. Great host. This has been a lot of fun to do, and I appreciate you having me on your show.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And for the rest of you guys, do me a favor. Please make sure you check out his website. I'll have that information. Share this message because somebody needs to hear this. And I'll see you guys at the next episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Cesar Espino, real estate investor, business coach, and consultant, and author of the book, You Can Overcome Anything, Even When the World Says No. My number is 424-501-6046. In my book, I talk about making the necessary changes to shift your mind for prosperity and certainty. Pick up your copy at Amazon. I also love helping families with their real estate and can purchase your house fast and all cash. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. My number is 424-501-6046.
Thank you for having me today. I am so glad you've tuned into this podcast. You can find me at your favorite podcast platform where you can like, subscribe, comment, and share. And to learn more about myself, my services, you can find me at www.cesarrespino.com, or you can also find me at your social media. Thanks for joining me, and I am looking forward to having you at the next episode. And know you truly can overcome anything.